Okay. So, welcome to today's MCAT strategies. We're going to be covering some of the basic MCAT strategies, like the best topics to cover, resources to use, and some of the science and car strategies as well. Okay, and this is by Pre-Med Peers. We're a nonprofit, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us by email and join our listserv to keep up to date with our resources and sessions. And a little bit more about us, we have our free sessions on our website, but we also have three other programs that we run. Our live prep course is coming in May. We also have a self prep course, which is live right now. And we also offer MCAS schedules if you need additional help. So for any of those, you can sign up on our website or email us. Okay, so I'll be discussing some of like the basics when you decide to take your MCAT, what you should start doing before you start studying. So definitely decide when you want to take your MCAT. You want to start breaking down, which months are going to be your content months, which ones you're going to start practicing and doing those practice questions and your full lengths, because you want to have at least 2 months of good practice. So you want to make sure you're utilizing all those best resources. You also want to start learning, how do you best learn? What are you going to use for your content? You want to gather all your resources for your content review. And you can, do this by reading all the books through Kaplan or Princeton or watching the Khan Academy videos, things like that. And then you can definitely use the AAMC material in UWorld during that content review, or if you want to use it after, that's totally fine too. So another thing I would just like mention is make sure you schedule in breaks because you're going to be studying for the MCAT, for a while, and it's not fun to burn out. So you want to make sure you're scheduling in breaks and time for yourself so you don't burn out during the MCAT exam. You also want to try to do at least a lot of practice MCATs just before you take the actual one. It's just going to help build your stamina and your flow. So once you do decide on an MCAT date, start taking the diagnostic test. That's going to just help you figure out which areas you are weak in, which ones you're strong in, so you can plan accordingly. I like to plan out my schedule, so like block out times, when you're actually going to study throughout the day and the week, so you don't end up procrastinating or forgetting to study, or make sure you figure out what time you're able to study best. For me, I like to do my MCAT studying in the morning, but if you work or something like that, you want to figure out, are you going to study before work, right after work, or things like that. Oops. What? Sorry. Okay. So you want to also rotate subjects. That's another strategy. If you want to use that, you can do it by like rotating, doing Mondays, like maybe you're covering the biology section. Tuesday, you're covering psych and sociology. Wednesday, you're doing something else. That can help just because you're not doing everything each day and you'll see kind of how the progression is doing, but you want to like just figure out how you study best. Um, and then for cars, you definitely want to do a little bit of cars practice a day. Cars is really, it takes some time to understand, and Malaz will go over some more strategies about this, but definitely try to incorporate some sort of cars practice each day. And if you need additional MCAT help with your schedule, you can definitely contact us and we can try to help you out by figuring out a schedule for you. Okay, and so we kind of made a pro and con of like each company and their books. You want to make sure, like, do you want to get a really in-depth knowledge of everything, or do you just want to make sure you have the essential information for the MCAT? So these are just some pros and cons of each company. Okay, so once you are done with your content review, you want to move on to phase two, which is starting to incorporate some of those practice materials with your content review. This can help you understand which subjects you might be weak in and which ones you need to kind of understand more. I think a lot of students end up using UWorld. The passages are really great and the explanations are really awesome too. And if you they also have a trial, so you can use, I think 100 questions for free. Khan Academy also partnered with the AAMC, so they also provide free passages for you to practice with. So those are some options that you can use. We also have a UWorld discount, so you can try to use that discount to buy UWorld as well. Okay, and phase three is definitely using the double AMC material. You want to definitely start incorporating this early and making sure you have understood it. I would, when I say save it for last, I mean make sure you've done most of your content review and have understood it so you don't end up wasting the double AMC material. And this can really help show you where you are with your score because if you're not where you want to be, maybe it can be helpful to push your MCAT back or really just understand what you need to be doing better. Okay, so full lengths, you really want to do these under the timing and how you would be doing your real MCAT. So when you have like those breaks, you don't want to be going on your phone, taking too long, things like that. Um, so I would try to do at least one for at least a month before your exam. So you start building in that stamina, getting used to doing, all of those questions in one sitting. And then you want to go over your full length. That's really important. You want to go over every question and every answer choice, even if you get it correct, just because there's going to be a lot of answers and questions that you maybe guess on. So you might get it correct in the spur of the moment, but you want to make sure you actually understood it. So you can do that by making a log of all your mistakes and all of the content and things that you missed so you can definitely understand all of those materials. Oh, I don't know why that's doing that. Okay. So, if possible, start doing those um, questions at 8 a.m. Usually, I think the MCAT starts at 8 a.m. I could be wrong with the COVID policy, but if your MCAT is at a different time, try to make sure you're really understanding those questions at that time. So if you don't like usually wake up early, I would try, waking up early like you would be during the real MCAT. And then, like I said, just keep a journal of notebook of stuff that you were confused about and review this often so you understand those topics. Okay, I think, yeah, so definitely use practice passages and try to incorporate them when you're confident about the material so you get the best, help from the passages. Okay, sorry. Okay. So another thing is if you think you know something, but when you take kind of like the passage, I think that really helped me understand how well I actually do know that. So if you do know something, make sure you do know it. But if you see something you come across and you are having trouble like remembering it, make sure you write it down and don't just be like, oh, I knew it. Like, don't brush it off. Okay, because it can come up on your real MCAT and then you wanna try to know it before that. You can definitely use Quizlet. A lot of people use Anki, which is a flashcard platform that can be really helpful for memorization with spaced repetition. And you can also like find like friends who are studying with you. You can check out our Slack group and find study buddies to keep motivation up. So those were some of the tips I had to go over the MCAT, and Malaz and Alex will go over the rest of them.
Thank you, Sim. Really appreciate your introduction and the thorough information you provided. So now switching gears a little bit, we're going to go through an example a of a way to go about solving math questions. So as we know, on the chemistry physics section of the MCAT, some of the math questions can really take you for a loop. Um, I often found myself getting stuck in calculations until I realized something that I think everybody needs to take advantage of when they are studying for the MCAT, when they're actually taking the MCAT on test day. So the way I like or I plan to describe this strategy is simply by doing a problem here. So on the top here, it says LED detectors have a wavelength of 900 nanometers. The question is, what could be the frequency of light used in the LED detectors? So as we know, velocity equals frequency times wavelength. So speed of light is 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, and we know that the wavelength is 900 nanometers. And as you can see, I made a little mistake there. It should be 900 times 10 to the negative 9 times frequency. I messed up there. Um, my apologies. So, essentially, what the first thing that I like to do when I'm approaching a math problem that is in scientific notation is I like to make the equation a single digit scientific notation. So going from 900 times 10 to the negative 9 to 9 times 10 to the negative 7. I think this makes solving problems way easier when you're not trying to do 3 divided by 900, then we can just do 3 divided by 9. And that gives us an easy answer of 0.33. Of course, you always remember when you're dividing um, an exponent by another and the exponent that is on the denominator is negative, then it really acts as a multiplication of the positive. So 10 to the 8th divided by 10 to the negative 7 equals 10 to the 15th. So by solving this problem, we kind of went through basically the whole process. Uh, 3 times 10 to the negative 8 divided by 9 times 10 to the negative 7. That gives us 0.33 times 10 to the 15. However, when we look back at this problem, we can realize that none of this was really necessary. We really did not need to go about uh, changing that 900 to a 9, and we really didn't even have to do the problem at all, because when we take a look at this problem from a far perspective, what we can do is we can just think, okay, I'm going to have to divide the wavelength by the velocity, so I'm going to end up getting 3 over 900. That's going to give us a 0.33, or one third. Whatever, however many zeros there are in that decimal, it doesn't really matter, because if we're looking at the answers here, when we know that the coefficient is going to be a 3.3, or it's going to be a 3, however many decimals there are, we automatically cross off B and C from this answer. And then we obviously have to know that when you're dividing 10 to the negative 9, or 10 to the 8 by 10 to the negative 9, it's going to become a positive. So the simple answer here is D. For a lot of these math questions, you can use this strategy, which is dimensional analysis, in order to get an answer without really doing any sophisticated calculations. So the more time you can save doing these math problems, the easier they will be. And of course, the easier the rest of the questions will be, because you will have a lot more time to do them. So we can go to the next slide here. So next topic is Reddit MCAT. Reddit MCAT, I think, is one of the best resources that you can use for the exam. Obviously, besides the AMC material, whether you're using Kaplan, Princeton Review, etc., those are unbelievable resources. those are things that you definitely need to use. Reddit MCAT is a great accessory to all of the other resources that you're using. So, for example, if you have a question on any topic on the exam, you can simply do a Google search of whatever your question is, and then afterwards you can type Reddit MCAT into that into Google, and it will give you the exact answer that you're looking for. And I think that we lost the presentation here. So I'm gonna try to pull that up from my end. But Reddit MCAT is a great resource nonetheless. It is an unbelievable resource that you can use, because when you have a question on the MCAT, there is a 99.99% chance that somebody has had that question before you. And Reddit MCAT is a group with hundreds of thousands of people in it. So people ask questions and other people love answering them too. So it gives you the upper hand, because you don't have to spend a lot of time researching things when you can simply type in a question, type in Reddit MCAT after that, and the results will automatically appear for you. So somebody's answered that question in the mindset that you should be using when you are studying for the MCAT. So I am going to go ahead and try to share my screen here. Oh, we
I
are back. We're back
I
on.
shared it, Alex. Do you see it?
Okay. Yeah, I see it. Thank you. So
Course.
now let's talk about PsychSoc. PsychSoc is one of the sections that is a lot of memorization, right? And a lot of people are not psychology or sociology experts going into this exam. So what I recommend is Khan Academy. Khan Academy, I'm sure some of you know by now, has a lot of videos that go through basically every single topic that is tested on the MCAT, and there's also a 300-page document that can be used, which you can find in that Reddit group. So if you type in Reddit MCAT, Khan Academy 300-page document, that will pop up immediately. And what I recommend is that you go through this document and you also watch the videos at the same time. And if you know this document and the videos like the back of your hand, there is no reason that you shouldn't get a 130 or greater, which is really nice. I mean, it is kind of a do-it-all resource. Of course, you should be doing practice passages. You should be using other methods to refine your psych-so skills, but it truly does contain all of the material that you will see in the psych-so section on the MCAT. So it's a great resource, and to be totally honest with you, I think it is best to just use this resource. So Kaplan has a psych-so book, and it doesn't contain the information that you need to know. So I truly think that using one of like the Kaplan or Princeton review books will not help you for PsychSoc. Using this 300-page document and watching the videos is 100% the way to get the grade that you're looking for in this section. All right, so for passage strategy, this is a strategy that I found to be very useful. It might not be great for you. It might not be a strategy that helps you out, but I do think that it is a worthwhile strategy to at least try out, especially if you have some time until your exam. If you are taking your exam in 2 weeks and you've never tried this strategy, I wouldn't recommend doing it. But if you have 2 months before your exam, I think this is a great strategy to try out for at least a few days to see if it works for you. But this strategy is very simple. Just read the questions before you actually start reading the passage, and don't try to remember every single thing in these questions. Just look for keywords. So for the CP section, look for specific reactants that they're asking for you. Look for vocabulary words in cars that they say, what does the author mean when they use this word? Look for genes or mutants in the BB section, and look for specific experiments or specific trials in the psych-soc section. These are just examples. But reading the passages very, very briefly beforehand and just looking for some keywords can really help you understand what they want you to take from a specific passage. So I think that it's a very worthwhile strategy. Of course, it might not be that way for you, but I can certainly say that it did save me several points on the exam, just going at a passage and knowing what to look for. So process of elimination. Process of elimination should be your best friend. I think a great way to go about answering questions is, especially when you're stumped. When you're stumped, that is something that is unbelievably helpful, is trying to determine why specific questions are wrong or why specific answers are wrong. Because usually, if you're thinking about trying to take things off of the list, you think in a totally different way than if you're trying to pick something that is like perfectly correct. And I think that this is a really good way to go about solving questions that you don't understand, or it can be your first strategy when you approach questions and answers. And another thing to note about process of elimination is that if two answer choices say the same thing or very close to the same thing, they're usually both wrong. A lot of people will say if there are two answer choices that are opposite to one another, then they're both wrong. I never saw that as being true. I never saw it being true enough for it to be a rule of thumb. But if that works for you, then go right ahead, knock yourself out with it. So now for flagging questions, definitely try not to flag too many questions, because I was definitely I guess you could say like a flagaholic. I would flag all of these questions that I was fairly sure about. But for example, in the CP section, I would flag every single question that had a calculation in it, just because I wanted to remember to go back to that question and make sure that my calculations were right. But when you're trying to go through these questions that you flagged at the end of the exam, and you have 30 of them, it's really hard to remember exactly which questions you really did not get. So I'd recommend, if you like to flag a lot like I did, definitely write. They give you a piece of paper, or not a piece of paper, but like a whiteboard that you can write on. I would definitely recommend writing down numbers of questions that you really, really, really don't understand, or you're really not confident in your answer, and putting like a little square or a circle around them. I think that it can definitely save you a lot of headache at the end of a section, and it definitely allows you to determine which questions you really need to take a look at again. So that's it for me. I will now hand it off to Malaz, who will discuss a few other strategies.
Thank you, Alex and Sim, for the nice information you guys presented. I thought it would really help to get to know different strategies, because we know that particular strategies don't work for everyone. So in this session, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you like a toolkit that you can try, figure out which one works best for you, and use it. So Alex provided some really nice strategies that you can try when you're practicing, and you can try those that I'm just going to provide you now and see how they work for you. Just try things out if you have a lot of time and see which one works best and stick to it. So I'm just going to talk about simply first about cars. So I'm talking about passage reading strategies. And so keep it big picture. What they want to do, they want to try to confuse you. So they will put a lot of technical terms. They will put a lot of like big words you don't understand, especially like for philosophy or art passages. We want to try to keep it as big picture as we can. So basically what I mean by this, so if you encounter a sentence that is hard and you don't understand it, doesn't click, just as soon as you read it, move on. If you don't understand it, probably other people did not understand it. On the other hand, if you encounter a sentence that presents a clear, concise, and like an easy to understand argument, highlight it. And after finishing reading the paragraph, write down the summary or whatever way you want to keep track of that summary. Just focus on the easy sentences that you found to be important that you highlighted. So this is helpful for two things. Why we want to keep track of the ideas of the passage as well. It allows us to see how the ideas flow in the passage, and it allows us to come back to that paragraph if the question is referring to that paragraph. So let's say a question is asking about paragraph 2, and they ask you, what does the author think of that particular word in paragraph 2? You don't have to read paragraph 2 and look for that exact word. All you have to do is go back to your summary, see which of these answer choices best represent your summary, and this is the right answer usually. So yeah, this is how it's helpful. And the other thing I'm going to say before moving forward is the reason why I'm saying easy sentences are important is because they really cannot put a hard sentence in front of you and ask you on it. What they can do is they can put easy sentence in front of you and ask you on those. So this is what they can do. And so after reading the passage, I think it is very, very important to write down the main idea. The main idea of the passage needs to be very, very clear in your head, that you know what they are talking about exactly, so that when you go to the questions, you have like a guide to help you answer them. And so the main idea, I think, should be between 4 to 6 words, very simple, very clear. You can use it to answer questions. The reason why I'm saying this to write down the main idea is because if you notice, most of the questions will refer to the main idea in cars. So this is your best guide when you're answering questions. Okay, so we talked about the passage. Now, what about reading the questions? It might sound cliche, but read the question slowly and carefully. The reason why I'm saying this is where all the points at, the questions. We need to read them very carefully. After you read the question, just make sure you summarize it in your head. Because if you can't summarize it, you probably understood the question. If you could not summarize it, you did not understand the question. So how would you answer it if you did not understand it? The third step is, and I find this to be really helpful, to help me a lot personally, is without looking at the answer choices, try to predict the answer based on what you know. For example, if the question is asking, what do you think the author would think about scenario X? You'd be like, I think the author would like that, in your head. And then you eliminate the answer choices that discuss the opposite, and you pick the ones that sound like your prediction. The reason why I am saying that is because they were really going to trick you in the answer choices. They're gonna put some words, they're gonna make sentences look good, and so that you can go and select those. And the answer choices that look so good usually are the false ones. And so we want to have a guide in our head that can help us go to the right answer choice when we answer a question. So predicting the answer without looking at the answer choices. Your prediction could be either going back to the paragraph or the sentence that you highlighted. If it's about a specific paragraph, you can go back to the main idea that you wrote down, or you can just try to answer it logically based on common sense. Okay. The third phase is, okay, now you move on to the answer choices. What we can do, again, the same thing, read carefully, summarize them. I recommend that you do not read all the answer choices at once. Instead, read each one and compare to the next, because it limits the things in your head. Like, for example, if you're reading 4 answer choices at a time, you're more likely to get confused. But if reading 2 at a time, you're more likely to get less confused, right? And so what we want to try to do is we want to compare 2 answer choices to each other and eliminate the one that we think is more wrong. So in other words, we want to pick the one that is least wrong. Especially in cars, there is no correct answer. All the answer choices usually are bad, but the ones that is correct is the one that is least wrong. So this is what we want to try to do is process of elimination, like Alex nicely mentioned, but we do it when we compare two answer choices to each other. So moving on, I thought I would present an example paragraph. I would read it in front of you. I would tell you what my thinking process is, and I have an example question showing you what I mean by this. So let me see if I can have a laser pointer. Okay, awesome. So this paragraph is from Jack Weston, so I'm going to read it out loud really quickly. Contemplation of what is meant by the term adulthood could serve to ease tensions between service providers and family members as they negotiate the shift between policies that recognize careers and those that emphasize the right of a person with an intellectual disabilities. So this sentence is very long. I know they're talking about something about adulthood and some about tension between two groups, service providers and family members, but I just move on. Service providers might focus on independence while parents might focus on safety. Do you see how this sentence is very clear? It's showing you a clear contrast between service providers. They want independence, whereas parents, they want safety. Okay, the next one, adulthood for individuals with intellectual disabilities eventually might be defined in such a way as to balance these two positions. So this is the author now putting on their perspective. And so when I finish reading this paragraph, I would highlight this sentence. And in my head, I understand that, okay, there is independent service providers and parents want different things. Service providers want independence, whereas parents want safety. Okay, this is a question. The question asks, what relationship does the author imply between parents and service workers? Okay, I remember this idea was mentioned in that paragraph, and the prediction that I have in my head is that they want different things, right? And so I go to the answer choices, disabling or self-sacrificing. I don't remember there was any mention about self-sacrificing in the passage, so I would eliminate that one. Disabling or conflicting. I am kind of stuck here. So my prediction was they want different things. They want different things sounds closer to conflicting. So I would eliminate A. Collaborative. These two ideas are the opposite, and I know that they want different things, which is closer to conflicting. So the answer is C for this question. And if you have any concerns or anything, feel free to unmute and ask me. But this is an example of what I was trying to say. So now we move on to science. The same thing for science, keep a big picture. What we want to do here is we want to understand what is the main thing each paragraph is saying. In science, one thing that is different they might present in front of us is it can be experimental. And so what I mean by this, they can give you a paragraph describing an experiment, or they can give you a figure. Okay, so how can we go about the figure? Well, very easy. We look at the x-axis. This usually represents the independent variable, which is the variable that we are changing. Look at the y-axis. That usually represents the dependent variable, which is the variable that we are measuring. Okay, we understand now what they're changing and what they're measuring, and we take note of the big pattern, like big picture, what is happening in a paragraph. Oh, something is increasing, something is decreasing, and we move on. This should take like between 15 to 30 seconds per figure, like very quickly. Just we get the main idea of what is happening in each figure, and we move on. Just in case of a question, refer to that figure. We have an idea of what they're measuring, what they're changing, and what is the pattern in each figure. In here, I thought I would show you an example science figure that we can go over together. And so, okay, so in front of us, they gave us this figure. In the title, it says Michaelis-Menten kinetics of ammonia oxidation rates in response to changes in temperature. Okay, when I read the figure title, I see that they are studying something about the role of temperature and the kinetics of oxidation rates. I look at the x-axis, they're changing the concentration of ammonia. I'll look at the y-axis. I don't understand what AOR means, but I look at the units and it seems to be some concentration per time, and I understand that this is rate. So they're measuring the rate and they are changing the concentration. And the plots here, what they're changing as well is the temperature. Okay, So I will start from the purple one. Let's see. Okay, they start at 15. So the Vmax is here, and then they increase the measure to 20, the Vmax increases, and then they increase to 26, also the Vmax increasing. But when I go to 33, however, the Vmax decreases to be the lowest. So there seems to be a threshold that is affecting how the kinetics work. So what is our pattern? If you increase the temperature, you increase the Vmax until a point. And when you reach that point, the Vmax decreases. Okay. This is all I had, and we hope that this was a helpful session for you. Feel free to reach out to us at info@pre-med-peers or via Slack. If you have any questions or any concerns, we're more than happy to help you. Does anyone have any questions that would like to ask?
We know you guys have questions. We're ready to answer them. Don't feel don't be shy. Maybe I'm wrong.
All right. So the recording should be uploaded very soon. I'm gonna stop recording. Oh, no, I don't think I can stop recording. I think Sim has to do that. Anyways, so when Sim is here, she can stop recording. But again, feel free to reach out to us via email or via Slack if you have any questions, and we're more than happy to help you. Yep.
Yeah, I'll stay on for I'll stay on until 8 if anybody has any questions. But thank you for sharing all of that, Malaz. For those of you that don't have questions, I hope you have a nice weekend. I wish you the best of luck on the MCAT. And best of luck with all your studying. And yeah, always feel free to reach out to us through Slack, email, whatever it is. Additionally, we will continue holding these free sessions. So keep an eye out for the Slack group where we will send some reminders before the sessions. But yeah, thanks guys for your time, and have a good one.
Alex, I'm gonna head out, but this was nice.
All right, have a good one, Milas.
Take care, Alex. Bye-bye.